Hey, you're listening to the Oilers Live podcast. My name's Michael. This episode is a joint podcast between myself and the gents over at OilersYYC. Went and joined them at the Pig and Duke tonight and got to meet Dave and Andrew and their great sound guy, Manny. Had a good time, some good conversation. Lots of hockey was talked about. Lots of other things were also talked about. Just a good old time. So if you ever have a chance to go visit them, head on over to the Pig and Duke, 12th and 12th in Calgary. Also, make sure you follow them at OilersYYC. Enjoy the episode.
Oilers Live Podcast.
So just like the Flintstones and the Jetsons, or that time where Homer Simpson met Jay Sherman, we finally reached the point in our podcast lives where we have a crossover episode. That's right, the two Calgary Oilers podcasts have met at the Pig and Duke for this edition of the OilersYYC / Oilers Live podcast.
Well, thanks. That was unexpected. Jetsons and Flintstones, that's probably one of my favorite episodes.
There's a theory, and it's my favorite cartoon conspiracy theory, that the Flintstones and the Jetsons are actually set at the same time after like Cold War era nuclear Armageddon, and the Flintstones are building there's a class thing happening, and they're rebuilding
underneath the clouds.
Well, the upper tier it lives in the clouds and has spaceships.
I've also heard
like
that on top of the Bearstein controversy.
Well, that's
I've also, that's not a crossover, but I had to throw that in there.
We're living in two different planes of existence.
I've also heard like the Jetsons actually came first, and then like nuclear holocaust happened, and then the Flintstones rebuild.
We were flipping through Netflix the other night, and we watched the Jetsons movie from 1990. It's not good. Tiffany plays Judy Jetson. It's bad. It's really bad.
I'm afraid
Tiffany,
to rewatch
Tiffany
that.
of music fame?
Yes, yeah. She's really. She really adds a really slutty component to Judy Jetson. Anyway, we got off track really early, and that's my fault. Let's talk about the Oilers. We actually have preseason hockey to talk about.
Wait. Preseason?
Well, I know. Well, we've had a couple games, though, and we had a fun one last night. We should introduce who's around the table first. We've got Andrew, opposite from me, and we've got Michael from the OilersYYC podcast, or OilersYYC. You're on it now. The Oilers Live podcast around the table as well. So, gentlemen, thanks for popping by. It's a busy one here, wing night, so it might be a little louder than usual. So we'll try and keep ourselves projecting here. But thanks for coming down.
Yeah, I just want to say, and for those listeners of the Oilers Live podcast that are listening in, this is a great little setup. So any chance you get that these guys call you up and say, hey, come on the show, you got to come out here, at least try to make it out to the Pig and Duke and record live. It's certainly a lot more comfortable than my basement, and a lot more scenery. It's a little louder, but
and I don't want
fun.
to disparage your basement, but I'm going to guess that the beer selection is probably better as well.
Yeah, the beer selection's better here for sure.
It is Oktoberfest now, and I'm on my second Oktoberfest Lederhosen Halfstein.
All right, you're going to be sliding under the table in about 30 minutes. That's great. This podcast is going to get fun.
That's why I only did the Halfsteins. If it had been my second Stein, I'd be drinking out of a boot by the half hour mark, and then we'd be in trouble.
Well, on that alcoholic note, because I got a beer myself here, let's
not judge. I mean, come on, dude.
I know. I've had my moments too. Let's talk about the Oilers, because holy shit, we actually have hockey to talk about. We've got a nice preseason record so far. We've got some really interesting preseason storylines emerging before the team heads to Germany to kick off the season. Germany and Sweden, I guess. I'll take it around the table here, I guess, and I'll start with you, Michael. What's been the biggest storyline for you in these couple of weeks of training camp so far?
Oh wow! Well, there's been a lot of storylines. We are as fans, we're all too familiar with how last season went. And then those of us that are on Twitter are also familiar with who the Whipping Boys were, if you will. And, you know, I've had a belief in Jesse Puljujärvi from the time he started on the team until now, and I've been one of the defenders that said, look, this is just a kid who hasn't played enough games in the NHL, and he's going to come into his own. And you know, I think, and it's kind of known, he changed sticks while he was back home this year. He's come back. He's a new person. He's definitely skating better. I don't know. I don't know if he, worked on that in the off season. It's clear he must have.
I think he lost some weight. I think that there was some reports that he had leaned out a little bit, and that might have.
You know what I see from him? I don't even think it's the stick or the weight. And a buddy of mine, I'm stealing this from him because he described it perfectly. You ever see those nature videos of like a baby moose learning to like stand on its own? Like, doesn't know its own size and strength, but figures it out eventually, right? That's what I'm seeing with Puljujärvi, is that, I mean, he's only 20, right? Like, he's finally figured out at the NHL level his speed relative to other players on the ice, his size relative to other players on the ice, and his reach relative to other players on the ice. And he's using those three things to make plays, which is something that just takes time and experience, and quite frankly, filling out a little bit, you know, and being more comfortable in your own body, right? It reminds me, you know, on the last podcast I was on, I was talking about the difference between Nurse and Bouchard. Darnell Nurse had that same thing too. When he was 18 years old, first exhibition games with the Oilers, you saw a gawky teenager, right? We forget how young these guys are when they're first coming out of junior. Absolutely. You know, they're still growing as human beings.
And on that note, Nurse has looked like 180 degrees to that.
Yeah.
He's rushing the puck, looking assertive.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing out of him. I don't know what it's going to translate to in terms of like his position on the depth chart per se, but I like what we're seeing out of him. And this defense desperately needs people that are going to assert their authority and actually make plays and do the right thing.
So the broader point being, you know, a lot of these teenagers that come into the league that aren't physically ready, takes time. And that's it. That's just it. It takes time and it takes reps. And Jesse Puljujärvi, we're seeing that pay off after a couple years of waiting. A lot of people that we've talked to have pegged him as being the breakout player this year, and it looks like that's the case.
Yeah, and we've got a Twitter friend from New York that knows Jesse and talks to him over the summer. It's also suggested that, and if you go back and look at his numbers, it's always taken him a couple of years to acclimatize to the league he's playing in before he excels at it. The thing though that strikes me the most is, and we've saw it the last few games, is that no matter what, he is the hardest working guy out there. Like he never skates half-assed to anything. He's always fast to the puck. He's going. I admire that. You brought up Nurse. He's another guy that works hard every single play, right? And perhaps maybe this is a good segue to a story that kind of, it's not a big story, but it's one that kind of bothered me, was Draisaitl's play last night. And, I thought he was a little bit lackluster. And I don't think it's a skill thing. I think it was a desire thing. I know it's just preseason, but he sure didn't. To me, it didn't feel like he wanted.
I have difficulty judging players like that in the preseason, simply because they know it's the preseason. You know, I mean, one of our favorite hockey players of all time, even for us Oilers fans in Calgary, Jarome Iginla. That dude was notorious for having the slowest starts every single year, because you know what it takes to go through 82 games, and you know how to conserve your energy, right? I mean, if this is still an issue, if he's playing his father's team next Wednesday in Cologne and in Germany, and he looks equally lackadaisical, then we've got a problem.
Yeah,
I agreed. I bristle a little bit at the idea of going after the vets for effort at this point when they're smart enough to know the games don't mean anything. Now, flip that on its ear. One of the guys who I really liked in terms of effort level last night on that fourth line was Alex Jason.
Oh, yeah.
He showed exceptional.
Well, guess what? He's playing for a contract. He's playing for his career. He's playing for his life.
100% makes sense.
Where Zach Cassian, who's next to him, I mean, he's still got a contract in the NHL. Jason doesn't. Who do you expect to be more balls to the wall, right? Like, it is a team game, and it's a team sport, and there's a final score at the end of these preseason games, but every single player has a different individual circumstance that they're trying to work through or they're trying to deal with, whether it's contract status, whether it's an injury history that they're trying to get over, whether it's new training in the offseason. So, you know, I tell people with preseason, don't worry about the score. The score is meaningless. Look at every individual circumstance on the ice and what these guys are battling with and what they're doing, and judge those players on those merits as opposed to did the team win, did the team lose. And that doesn't even account for the fact that you might be playing like a B team or a C team sent to you by the other club, right? So
on that note,
sorry.
No, I you could go on forever, Dave. We love you. We love you for it.
No.
I just wanted to touch on like Lucic, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto line specifically. I think to your point, Mike, that it was that Draisaitl and Lucic were overshadowed by Yamamoto, but it wasn't that they played bad so much. It's just that I think they didn't have to, because Yamamoto was like all over the place doing all sorts of like crazy stuff. And then there was the back and forth with the penalty trouble that they had kind of midway through the game, and I just think it was a matter of like the young guys like Ratty, Yamamoto, Puljujarvi just outshining the veterans, and not so much that those guys weren't doing what they were supposed to do, but those are guys that can afford to have quiet nights,
right,
in the preseason.
Yeah,
to your point, Dave.
I don't bring it up on Draisaitl because I perfectly, and I tweeted about this last night. I mean, he's got the capability to be a number one center on most teams in my mind, I'm not like you. I would not give anybody a pass any night of the week, preseason or otherwise. You're a hockey player. You're a professional. You go out there to play. You got, you don't just have your job on the line, but you got Yamamoto's job on the line. You got to get him the puck to be successful, and you carry your teammate, right? And so, to me, it's it's a professionalism thing. Nobody ever says about Connor McDavid that he's come out looking half-assed. Maybe if it was a rookie game.
Maybe this is first year for Connor McDavid. Who knows, right? Yeah. But no, I know what you're saying.
But to that point, I mean, Draisaitl, I don't want to belabor that point because it's really just a small issue. Like it was, a single game. What I would like to see though is, and you're right on, is when he goes to Germany, right? Like playing against your dad. God, I know, anytime I played family on the ice, I want to kick their ass, right? Like I want to get out there, and that's motivation enough, right? Like just bragging rights at the dinner table, right? And so I hope that he comes out and does well, and we know he will, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I mean, Jack Michaels tweeted out today what he thought the projected lines might be, and he had Puljujarvi on the second line with Lucic and Draisaitl. So if you listen to Staples and McCurdy, their last podcast, and Stauffer, their take is that Puljujarvi drives his own line, third line. What's your thought? I mean, what do you guys think about that? Should Puljujarvi be with Dry?
I'm just looking at the tweet right now. Sorry, Dave.
I'm thinking I would still send, and I know I'm in the minority on this, it feels like right now, but I'd still send Kyler Yamamoto down for 40 games. There's, we did see these two games here in Calgary, the rookie game and then the first preseason game where Yamamoto was involved in both. And his hands are there, his skating and his quickness are there, but he's still, even against like AHL rosters or rookie rosters, he still has to figure out how not to get bullied in the corners, down low, everything like that. I think that he would be well served with give him a half a season in the A. If he forces your hand, if he's lights out and he's doing figure eights around AHL defensemen, sure, bring him up.
Also, injury, like he'd be a lock-in for first call-ups for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what happens when a Yamamoto player who's never played pro hockey except for that 9-game stint, what happens when it's game 42 of the season and it's Edmonton, San Jose, and he's up against, Burns and Vlasic and Karlsson down low as opposed to some of the AHL plugs? I don't think, and this goes back to the PRV stuff we were talking about earlier, in terms of physical maturity, there's no reason to push Kyler Yamamoto. Give him a half season against AHL plugs and then see where we're at in December. And if he makes you look stupid, you know what? You'd rather have him make you look stupid when you send him down as opposed to having him make you look stupid if you leave him up.
And I'm looking at the tweet now just for context, and the context will help for my comment on it. So the top line is obvious: RNH, McDavid, and Ratty. That is an absolute lock, and we can talk about Ratty after this because, I think that has been an absolute revelation. Not to say that he has been doing it. I know, Dave, you're looking at me. Yeah. But in terms of the validation of it, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Lucic, Draisaitl, and Puljujarvi, get that second line. Kairos, Strome, and Yamamoto. Strome has been I think MIA, but I think you're paying him and you have to ice him at least for 40 games, or you got to figure something out.
I didn't mind Strome.
I haven't minded him, but he's just been overshadowed.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to read the rest of the lines before we get into this.
Finish it up.
Reader, Brodziak, Cassian, and then your two popcorn testers are Kajula and Chiasson. Now, I agree with you, Dave, that Yamamoto should go down because Chiasson is showing so well that I think you're going to afford to and have Chiasson as a Band-Aid for the first 40 games on a really cheap contract. He's a veteran guy. You have Cassian who can move up and down the lineup. Kajula might eventually show up at some point, or an injury might let him get into the lineup.
Yeah.
Point being is that there's room for Yamamoto if you make it, but I don't see any reason why you need to slot him in right away when you have the potential of Chiasson and Puljujarvi and Cassian all fighting for that second, third line spot. And it would be good for him to go down and just absolutely destroy the AHL for 20 or 30 games down there, and then he's laughing around January, February when you call him up because of an injury or you make a trade or just because he's earned it, frankly.
So I don't
and if we didn't
disagree
have
with
those
you
guys,
guys.
I would 100% be we should probably keep him at least for a little while.
I don't disagree with you guys. I should say I'm not against setting him down. But what about, earning your spot, right? Has he done enough to earn his spot? And maybe he hasn't yet. I mean, we still have a couple games yet. But if he's done enough, don't you owe it to him?
That is a tough conversation. I think we've had that multiple times here, especially with Bouchard. Has he, a guy like Bouchard, a guy like Yamamoto, have they earned that spot?
You have two things. You have has player X earned their spot, and also because player X is a long-term investment, what's best for player X's development. So, I mean, the Bouchard thing's tough because you don't have that American League option like you do with Yamamoto. I think that's a really handy thing to have. And you know what? Again, if he's good and if he's lighting up the American League, bring him up, I mean, Yamamoto, I wouldn't, and I never like talking about, attitude and things like that, but we have to remember that Yamamoto, after that 9-game stint, when he went down to Spokane, he tanked. He was, and a lot of people were saying he was kind of sulking about not being in the NHL anymore, and it only took about, a couple months for him to actually sort of find his touch again. If I'm the Oilers, because you're trying to see what you have as a player and as a complete player, and that's mental and physical, I kind of want to send him down just to see how he reacts, because his play dropped off so significantly when he went down to Spokane. I say you send him down, you say, look, this is a test. You force our hand. make us look stupid for sending you down, and you'll be back up here.
I think he does need to be challenged on that, and you're right. Like going back to junior, I think for a guy like that, just like with Bouchard, I think it sucks for guys like them. I would hope that the AHL being, especially the Pacific Division, and we talked about the last podcast about how the Pacific Division of the AHL is quite competitive, and there's like some really good quality teams down there. They get more practice time than they do in the other divisions, so like the opportunity to grow and really like force the team's hand is there.
Yeah.
Versus, the whole. I don't want to rehash the whole junior thing again. We could do that ad nauseum. Yeah. But the point being is that going back to junior definitely sucks way more than going and still making like good coin in the AHL.
You ever been to Bakersfield?
No. I'm not going to comment on Bakersfield as a town. Other than the organization is clearly a very good one, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, you've also created too this link between, and it doesn't have a lot of precedent that I can recall. An associate coach or an assistant coach being in the pros one year and then being the head coach down below in the minor leagues the next year. Often that works the other way. So, you're leaving him with a coach that he knows that system-wise they're doing the same thing too. So, yeah, I feel like right now, development-wise and team-wise, that might be the smartest, safest play with Kyler Yamamoto, because I don't think he's been good. I don't think he's been blow the doors off good for the Oilers just yet. So give it time. He'll get there.
So Andrew said something, though, that sort of struck a question in my mind, which is, have him go down and make us look stupid, right? Like, or maybe you said that, Dave.
I think we both, like Dave definitely said it out loud, but I think we're both alluding to the idea that we'd rather a guy, and I've said it before, we'd rather a guy like be begging to get called up because he's just destroying.
But here's my thought on that, because this is, and I'm just putting this out there. The reality is the Oilers don't have that luxury this year, right? They can't look stupid in that first 10 games because of what happened last year and where we're at as an organization and as a franchise. And if he earns the spot, is this not maybe the worst move you could make to send him down? I mean, especially given the fact that you need those first 10 games. I think you need to be 700, right?
How do you define earning the spot?
I mean, and that's for the team to decide. But he's got to be better than what's out there, right?
Yeah.
And so when he went to Winnipeg, he was playing on the left wing, right? I thought he looked great in that game, playing on the left wing. He's shown some versatility. He's not been scared to get into the blue paint. He is a small guy. We all know that. He's 5'8", right? And but he's not. He's got no fear, right? And and there's no doubt the kid's got an attitude, right? Like if you talk to anybody who's been around him at all, like they say the kid thinks he's a star, right? Like, and he acts that way. But it's a winning attitude, right? And sure, everybody'd be really pissed off if they, had 9 games in the show and then had to go back and play junior.
For sure.
But he went off to the World Juniors and he came back and arguably the best player in the WHL for the remainder of the season.
100%. And I think he carried that Spokane team like hard during their playoff run.
Yeah, he was outstanding. I remember watching highlights just to see how many points he'd get night after night. And so he came back with a vengeance. He came into camp with a bit of a vengeance. I thought he's, worked really hard. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence on this, really. I know I'm sounding like he should be on the team, but I'm on the fence because, next year at this time I might be talking about how we don't develop players enough, right? And so really, but we don't have, or as fans, or the Oilers, Chiarelli and team don't have the luxury of at all looking stupid this year. They're out of a job if they do, right?
I guess my concern would be, or my question would be, with this discussion, what's a better second line? Is it Lucic, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi, Lucic, Draisaitl, Yamamoto? Considering that we haven't seen that Lucic, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi line yet, I'm really curious to see how three big guys who can, and credit to him, Lucic is moving. Like I was impressed with his get up last night. Like,
you see the one back check he did?
That's what I mean. Like those guys are getting overshadowed, but it's only because the young guys are really showing up. But those guys are actually like really pulling their weight. And so I'm really happy with his hustle right now.
Three big guys who can skate in Lucic, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi. If that's a second line, I kind of like that idea. I don't know.
The only thing I would say, and I was mentioning it in the group chat last night, is that I was interested to see how having such disparate skill sets between the three players, Yamamoto, Draisaitl, and Lucic would be. You could argue Draisaitl and Lucic are a little bit more complementary in their skill set, but all three of them are quite, I would say, fairly distinctly different in terms of the way they approach the game, and it worked really well. Now, Puljujarvi is very much more like a get into the dirty areas. Not that Yamamoto's afraid of those areas. Like the goal that Yamamoto assisted on, he didn't get an assist, but he was like in front of the net, screening. You want that from a young guy.
I thought he got the goal at first.
I thought so too. Like the disparate skill set, I wasn't sure if it was definitely a feast or famine experiment. It worked really well, but is it going to work like every night? Right. Versus having a bit more of a, you're going to have a big boy skill second line that they're all pretty complementary in terms of like their hustle, their skill set. Although obviously Puljujarvi is different from Draisaitl, who's quite different from Lucic, and to the point that I think we haven't ignored, but I think we're kind of like glossing over, is that it is preseason.
Of course, 100%.
And so last night they were playing a not great Vancouver squad, and even when we go back to the Winnipeg game, it was a mostly NHL Winnipeg lineup, but it was not their full lineup, and that Winnipeg team ran roughshod over the Oilers at times. And I would be worried to the Yamamoto going down point that he's showing well in because he's almost there, but he's there. Like if the whole season was preseason, he'd be great. But then the minute the pros, like a Draisaitl or a Lucic or like a Blake Wheeler, right?
That's what happened last year, right? Isn't it?
Exactly. And like that's why the preseason record means nothing, is because I think it was the 14 season with like when we were like full on HOPE. We went like 5-1 or something. And then we just bombed the entirety of the first half of that year. Like, it's just those guys, they're just not showing up to the same degree they will in the season, which is why, like, as much as Yamamoto is making it a tough conversation, I'm still 100% on board with him going down. And I think that line combination is going to be money, but it will be money in like February or like this time next year. Versus right now when we're playing, when Yamamoto just, he's like the tiniest bit of extra work, and I'm glad we're having the hard conversation with the forwards though, because that's exactly what we need. The defense, on the other hand, which we'll wrap up this I think, and then talk about the defense, because I got some thoughts on that.
Well, one forward note that we should put up or put out there, I guess. How long does Ryan McLeod stick around?
I think he goes back, but I loved everything he's shown. He has been I knew he was like a late first round draft pick talent that got picked a little later than he should have been. But I didn't really fully appreciate how good that kid is.
So they, prior to the draft, I'd read a fair bit about him. I watched a few clips. And everybody says, from a pure talent level, he's that much better than his brother, right? But his brother was drafted higher. And the whole reason was all really around the question marks. Did he have the drive and the grittiness to drive to the middle? And I think it's hard to tell in preseason, but I can tell you that from a pure on skill set and the fact that we talked about it earlier, growing into your body and just maturing as a player, those are things things that I think he can get to, right? And but from a skill set level, like that pass that he did up the middle.
Oh, the outlet pass from behind the goal line?
Yeah. I mean, I still dream about that.
You blinked and the goal was scored. Like, that was such a fast play. Like, I was like, I had to watch the replay. I was like, what the hell just happened? And it was Yamamoto, right? That got the puck. It was
Yamamoto, yeah.
Got the puck real deep right before the blue line.
I have a lot of curiosity in terms of what that guy can do against an NHL opponent. Like I would love to see. I think they're going to
hide him in the system for 2 more years, and then he's going to come in. He's going to be like a Jake Gensel style of just blow people out of the water.
Well, the other thing too is that Mississauga is going to kind of suck this year, so that's something that the Oilers have shown reluctance to do in the past, is send players back to a team that's not very good in the Canadian Hockey League. Remember, Leon Draisaitl didn't go back to Prince Albert. They waited for that trade to happen, and then he went back to Kelowna. So, and they held him on the roster until that happened. Do you think they just orchestrated a trade with Safin Ostap to get him to Halifax?
Do you think they're going to somehow make it so that he goes to London?
I don't think London has any room.
Yeah.
How fun would that be if it was McLeod to London with Bouchard?
Well, that's the question, right?
Feeding him passes.
The Bouchard going back makes a little more sense, right? It's all of these sort of strings that you can pull in terms of what happens at the major junior level, in terms of getting guys into situations that works best for them. I think McLeod might get a couple games, and if not, they'll just bring him on the trip at the very least, just to have him around the team.
He might get his 9 games regardless, depending on what happens with the roster. And I would not be shocked though.
My other bet right now is because the Oilers have to wait and make some magic happen with the cap in order to sign anyone at this point. We might get Versteeged on the Alex Chiasson thing.
I'm fully prepared for us to get Versteeged on that.
Yeah. It's a verb now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, hey.
It is around this table.
I feel like he's played so well. He's not playing for an Oilers contract. He's playing for an NHL contract.
Yeah.
And someone's going to notice and bring him on.
If someone hasn't noticed, they're idiots.
Yeah. So, that covers what we've seen. Oh, except for Ty Ratty. We haven't mentioned Ty Ratty yet.
So let's round out talking about the offense with Ty Ratty.
Yeah, why not?
Because we have to be a little bit of self-inflicted Debbie Downers after this. I think with the defense and the goaltending, but let's finish with Ratty and just be happy with that.
All right, Andrew, start us off. What's your thoughts?
I am, just like you have dreams of that McLeod pass. I have dreams of Ratty coming like 5 seconds later than McDavid entering the zone, and just like on one knee, just sliding with his stick on the ice, and be like, I'm here, and telepathically messaging McDavid, pass the puck.
Yeah.
Because he's done that now like 4 times, where he just literally sliding on one knee and he just shoots, and the goaltender is left like with their jock strap up in the 200 levels.
Yeah.
Because McDavid can thread a pass, and Ratty's like, well, I'm just gonna put my stick on the ice and see what happens.
I'm not the gloating type. Yes, I am. But I had a lot of high hopes for Ty Ratty, even in the summer, and I'm on record on this podcast and in other places saying that I think Ty Ratty stays at that first line right wing spot all year, because simply looking at his history, he was a scorer when he was a midget AAA player here in Airdrie. He was a scorer in the Dub. And then he gets drafted by the worst possible team that he could potentially go to, and he's stuck with Ken Hitchcock in St. Louis. He's not a guy that bounced around from organization to organization. He was with St. Louis for quite some time, they held on
smothering blanket.
Yeah, so they held on to him for a long time. And scorers, you see that instinct that he has with McDavid on the ice, and even though he may not have the same tools as McDavid, he's thinking the game as close to McDavid as any of those wingers that McDavid has had in the past couple of seasons. So they've moved away finally from this idea that he needs a Dave Semenko type on his line, and instead give him a guy who's thinking in the same sort of realm as Connor McDavid, I mean, it's working, and these are goals that, the types of goals that are being scored, it's not like this is preseason defenses that are getting exploited. These are nice goals that are going to beat most NHL defenses. So there's something there with Ty Ratty. I think he's found money. I think he sticks around in that spot for most of, if not all of the season. And he's a 50-point player at least, if that happens.
If he stays the whole season, he's a 70, 80-point player. I think.
I think if he continues to do what he's doing, and no one can find a way to really check that, he could be like a 30-30 guy just by being McDavid's line mate.
Yeah. You have one job: cash in those feeds.
Put your stick on the ice.
Don't worry about defense. Don't worry about anything else. You are just the riding shotgun with Connor McDavid. It's the greatest opportunity you'll ever have in your career. Make the most of it. Work your ass off, and good things will follow. So
Andrew said it, though, he's got one job, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not with McDavid, it's not on the team.
Yeah.
That's probably what happens.
Yeah, if he's not being McDavid's tap it in, then smell you later. We'll find somebody else for that job.
100%.
We're going to do a little housekeeping that Manny has passed me, just in terms of we have a comment on our recording from an hour ago. From Jennifer Pouliou. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Jenna Pouliou, yeah.
I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. I cannot get enough of watching the Ratty goal highlights. Love seeing him killing it right now. And Pouliarvi, as I just call him Pool Party because I hate pronouncing his name the regular way. I feel like he's going to have an amazing season too.
It's positive right now, and unlike past preseasons where the hope kind of lies on one player's shoulders. I mean, last year it was Yamamoto. A couple years ago it was Vladimir Tkachev. Oilers fans have this habit of getting really excited about one superstar that's going to break through and make things happen. Everything looks, as a whole, like a rising tide lifts all boats. You know what I mean? Things seem to be more locked in than they were at this time last year, at any point last year. And I know, again, all of the preseason caveats and the asterisks that come with talking about preseason hockey, but the team looks like they're ready. I love the fact that they've been cutting very efficiently in terms of paring the roster down and getting close to a final number. I think that's great. I think more teams should do that.
We've seen 2 iterations of what could be an NHL lineup for the Oilers in 2 games in a row now, to a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's really important, especially with them going to Europe and having a brutal October schedule.
Yeah, it's what all teams should do. I mean, the preseason is too bloody long to begin with, but I think it makes more sense for teams to just.
We could do what San Jose did and recall what 14
Yeah, I think
players.
What happened, they forgot that they had a game here last night, and
oops.
I think
they're
that
still
was
getting over the hangover from the Carlson trade.
Yeah.
My guess is that was a paper shuffling move because their training camp opened up in San Jose for the AHL kids. But even then, it's kind of weird to cut and then recall and then cut again. So, and shit, they almost won too. They almost beat the Flames last night, up 4-1 in that first period. So,
all right, guys. On a happy note, we're gonna just take a quick break. So,
is that Manny making the break?
Yes, he's starting to vibrate beside me. So,
he's throwing things at us.
So, quote unquote live, air quotes, from the Pig and Duke on 12th and 12th. It's the Oilers Live and OilersYYC joint podcast. Taking a break, and we'll be back in a second.
Awesome.
OilersLive podcast.
Hey, welcome back. We have the guys, gentlemen from OilersYYC, and myself, Michael, here from Oilers Live for the second half of our joint super pod, as I've been calling it.
We're the Voltron of hockey Calgary podcasts.
The Voltron of I can't even repeat that. I don't
Two
know.
things do not constitute a Voltron. But
Well, there's 4. So we're 4 out of 5. So we're like 80% there.
all right, fair enough.
So as we have now shown in 2 separate segments, we can easily get off track in the first 5 minutes and talk about all sorts of things, Jetsons or Voltron related. You know what? It was a great first hour. It's good to meet these guys. I'm having a lot of fun, and as I always said when I started podcasting about the Oilers, schedule a couple hours to talk about hockey, I'm in, and so happy to be here and do this. We talked all about the forwards in the first segment. Let's move on to something that's maybe not as positive. Let's talk about the defense and what we have. And summer's been a summer of news and not all good. Who wants to go? I'm doing a toss-up here. Andrew or Dave?
I'll jump in. I'm looking forward to a full season of 77-6. I think that's going to be a bit of a game changer as compared to last year, in terms of a healthy Clefbaum and a full season of Adam Larsson as well. I don't have any concerns about that top pairing. I don't think you necessarily need a superstar defenseman to have a solid D. So I like that as a first pairing. Second pairing, Nurse and Benning. A lot of people have liked Benning's game so far. I'm a little more wait and see on Matt Benning, whether he can be a top 4 defenseman, but you know what? He makes a nice pair with Darnell Nurse. It's great to have Darnell back. Didn't miss a ton of time, so I'm reasonably happy with that. It's a bit of a dog's breakfast on that third pairing. In terms
A dog's breakfast is being very polite, Dave.
you have a lot of options, right? And the Oilers have already sort of shown their hand a little bit. I kind of liked Kevin Gravel and the way that he played in the preseason. I understand the need to send him down, and he might be a first call-up guy in case someone gets injured, but
he was the only surprise of the most recent send back to the minors. / cuts. I would say he was the only surprise for me.
I mean, I think you try and sneak a guy like that through waivers when everybody's going through
timing,
and as opposed to leaving him until
especially with the rules now being like once they're through waivers, you're good the rest of the season.
Yeah, so it's also too like Bakersfield is getting their camp underway, and you know if you're pegging this guy to be a leader in the organization, and you want him with some of the other kids there. So I liked him. Jerabek, still don't know if I hang the J or not. He had his first good game to my eye last night. He was really shaky in a lot of moments that I saw him. The game here last Monday, I think it was last Monday, that first preseason game against the Flames, he looked like the game was moving a little too fast for him. As a side note, the story out of Washington about Devontae Smith-Pelly and his conditioning being an issue after a summer of partying with the Stanley Cup.
Wow, what a shock.
Yeah. A, the Caps are going to be really bad in the first month. B, don't discount that with Jerabek as a potential source of his brain farts, because unlike the Oilers, this guy was playing until the middle of June, so you never know. Maybe it might take him a little more time to get up to speed. I think there's something there. I haven't seen 100% of it yet, but I thought that last night's game was an improvement. Who else? Chris Russell's Chris Russell. I get
We've
bored.
had that conversation. We're not revisiting
we've
that.
beaten that shit to death, so I'm done with that.
That, like the junior conversation,
Yeah.
we know where we all stand on that one.
Yeah. You've got Bear and Bouchard, who I think there's a place for either of them in the lineup, maybe not both. Evan Bouchard, man, I talked about this in our last little game recap that we did. He's such a fascinating player to me because Whereas a lot of other defensemen that age, when they enter the NHL, and I'm going over ground that I've gone over before, they always look like the game's moving too fast for them. Bouchard is almost the opposite. Like, he almost looks like he took a little too much cough medicine before the game started, and he's just moving in slow motion. Like his reads are so calm to be too calm sometimes. That's what I've noticed with him. His outlet passing is exceptional. He'll be great on the power play, and his ability to get pucks in through traffic to the net is exceptional. But he just needs to get used to the pace of NHL play. Not that he's overwhelmed by it, but he's almost underwhelmed by it in a way. I would keep him around at this point because I don't see any value sending him back to London.
Another conversation we've beaten to death, so I won't touch on that one.
And I think that is a right-hand shot on the power play. You know, given the way they're running with the 5 lefty thing right now, I would like to see someone at the point like Evan Bouchard as a first unit power play guy. First unit power play, third pairing minutes is what I'd like to see there. I don't think I missed anyone. Oh, yeah, Jason Garrison. Yeah,
I thought he had like a not bad game last night. He was moving the puck pretty well, pretty crisply, especially with McDavid. It wasn't the power play, but they were having
a couple moments where
a couple of really good offensive zone shifts, and the puck didn't die on his stick.
No,
he moved it to the right places, moved at a good speed.
Someone will find a home for him as a 7th defenseman somewhere. I just don't think it's
the
here.
The problem is our cap. Like, I would rather have Chiasson over him because I think we're gonna have to make that choice.
Yeah.
However, it was nice to see like just a veteran competency on the back end. The puck wasn't gonna like hop over their stick without cause.
Right.
And he just knew where to put the puck.
Yeah, it was calm. Again, not overwhelming enough that I would give him a contract here at least, you know. But he'll end up in, like, I don't know.
I recorded a pod earlier and we talked about Garrison, and you know, my feeling on it is there's more to the PTO than having him make the team. It's there's maybe a favor there that's been done. There's either that or, you know, initially they might have talked to him having a veteran presence. The only reason I suspect he stays on this camp at all, I mean, he's not been exceptional. I don't think he's, you know, we're talking about Yamamoto earning a spot. I certainly don't think Garrison has earned a spot. I thought Gravel, you know, if you're going to talk about that, Gravel was noticeably better than Garrison, and you know, and Garrison's a capable veteran, right? Like he is if you've heard him on any interview or otherwise, he's a very mature, very well-spoken, a good locker room guy. He had some experience around the Vegas locker room last year, you know, and
let's reverse engineer the PTO here, because when he signed his big deal after his one successful year in Florida, he signed it in Vancouver. Who was the power play coach in Vancouver when he signed that deal? Glenn Gulletson. Who's the power play coach now? Glenn Gulletson. So I think that's the connection that enticed him, or that was used to bring him in. Good veteran guy, as you said, knows the new coach coming in that's running the power play, so can help out just in practice or trying to explain concepts or things like that. So
it doesn't hurt to have a guy like that in camp.
Not at all.
Right?
That's just like Chiasson, and although Upshaw didn't work out because the physicals, but same principle.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed about Upshaw.
Well, I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago, like the Upshaw thing. I would have been happy about that 5 years ago.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where, like, Upshaw 5 years ago was the guy that everyone was trading Upshaw plus a second for whatever from Philly at the time, because we desperately needed a left wing post Ryan Smith. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, we'll give you Upshaw for, like, your first-round pick, plus we'll give you a second for that.
Yeah.
And that was, the rumor du jour. And I say rumor very lightly in that regard.
Let's circle back to the defense, because Dave obviously said a couple things. I mean, I actually, and this probably makes for a good pod, because most of which, I don't know that necessarily that I agree. Jerabek, let's talk about him for a second. And you know what? I mean, you're siding with somebody who is right there, which is McClellan. He went on record today to say he thought he was getting better game after game. Last night, I thought Jerbic was awful. I thought he gave it away a couple times. He gave it away the one time that cost Puljujarvi a penalty, right? He didn't get it out of the zone. He almost got beat again on the left side, like he did in Winnipeg. Made to look, absolutely slow. Like he can't, I'm a defenseman myself, and you got to be able to turn, right? And you got to be able to turn and keep the guy out wide, and he just hasn't shown that ability. Now, what it is, maybe it's being part of the Caps on the run. Who knows? I always qualify this when I'm speaking with friends, that we don't have the luxury of seeing them in camp day to day, right, as McClellan and those guys do. So there's clearly something maybe they see in him that I don't, but I would have cut him a long time ago.
Well, we also don't have the luxury of seeing these guys in person every game,
Yeah, I mean, you see them interact and the chemistry.
When I mean in person, I mean like being at a game in the stands in the rink as opposed to watching on TV. Because TV can be deceptive in terms of highlighting some things and de-emphasizing other things, specifically with defensemen, right? So, I mean, when I go to a game and I'm just sitting in the crowd watching, you get a lot out of watching the D and how they make their reads and how they position themselves, and there's a lot of stuff that's not caught on TV. So I feel almost less qualified to talk about the D because of that. I had the opportunity, I don't know if you did, to go to the rookie game here and the preseason game. And catch a few glimpses of some of these guys. It's what has me so bullish on Evan Bouchard, because seeing the reads that he was making and the ease with which he was making those reads was kind of eye-opening.
So he is, there's no doubt, exceptional offensive talent. And, and you can't say otherwise. I mean, he did something, only a couple of defensemen have ever done in the OHL. And the OHL is not, it's a junior league, but it's not a junior league.
The pedigree is still, the pedigree he has is ridiculous. Like there's no doubt there's something substantial there.
Absolutely. So, there's no doubt in that regard. But lots has been made, of course, of his defensive play. And that, to me, is maybe the scariest part. I do, absolutely 100% want to see Bouchard for a 9-game tryout. My concern there, if we keep him any longer than that, is the same as you have with the Yamamoto or anybody of that age, is you have a guy here that will be the face of your franchise too in terms of defense and could be in 2 to 3 years feeding that puck up to Connor McDavid in a Carlson type of manner that people will be talking about the Oilers like we're talking about the Sharks now. Do we risk him being in the back end there and getting caught out when some of the more highly skilled, the Wheelers and the Laine's and those guys are out there and being made to look a fool on defense.
Right.
Because he frankly just doesn't have the defensive game yet to be a first or a second pairing defense.
Well, you use the word yet because I think given his physical abilities, I don't think that's beyond him.
No, and that's my point, right? We need to develop that, and so I'm really, really scared that he becomes our sort of go-to guy because of the sole reason that we're having this conversation, which is we're all scared of what the defense looks like.
Yeah.
We've had that. The difference is in prior years we always had that conversation with the forwards, right?
Right.
With the young guy that came in and we're like, well, we have to take him. We got nobody else. Now we're having that conversation with the defense,
which is arguably worse on an individual level for a defenseman.
Can you give as from the perspective of a guy who plays defense?
Yeah.
Can you give him a babysitter? Can you find a guy that is someone who is a stay-at-home guy, or you tell someone, you are the stay-at-home, you are the adult in the room here, and
that's what they do by putting him on the third line, right?
Yeah.
Or the third pairing, and so he he'll play reduced minutes. He'll play 18 minutes a game and probably get put out in positions like, if he shows that he can still get that shot away at the NHL level during regular season, there's no doubt we'll see him in the power play. We'll see him in the power play guaranteed. I guarantee in the first 9 games we'll see him a couple times, and because that shot that he's got is sneaky. Like,
it's so sneaky,
and he is going to be. There's no doubt in my mind he is going to be a premier defenseman in a few years. Whether it's right, it could be right away. I might be completely wrong. He could in the first 9 games show, and I'm always open to that. Right, is that a guy could come in? What's his name, McAvoy, and did it with Chara. He showed that he was mature enough to play the game.
Well, and you've got.
Dave, did you want another beer?
I would love another beer. Yeah, sorry. Thanks. And the age thing too. I mean, it's no small thing that he's going to turn 19 next month.
Yeah.
And if you look at the pedigree of other players who have been drafted that high at that age when their first year was in the NHL, we're talking about guys like Zach Werenski, right? Like that's the level he's at in terms of where he was drafted, where he was pegged, and when his first year in the league is. So that's a check mark in his favor. I think the question that the coaching staff is going to have to ask is how quickly is he learning? From day one when he shows up to rookie camp or even in July, what sort of progression have you seen in his offensive and defensive game? And if he shows himself to be a quick study in terms of what he's doing or what he's not doing, you keep him around. And even if you don't give him 82 games, even if you give him, reduced game time, but you give him Trent Yanni as a teacher for the entire year, is that more valuable than sending him down to a different organization in London where London's going to be the Harlem Globetrotters this year? That's the concern. If you want this guy to learn defense, is it going to happen in London where they're going to be lighting, like it's going to be him and the Swedish kid, Bokvist, who came over. That's going to be
how sweet would that defensive pairing be?
But they're not going to play defense. That's the thing. It's going to be.
Yeah, but do they really have to if they're cycling the puck?
Bouchard though is
spinning the ball on his finger. He's using a freaking ladder. Like
the Washington Generals are just being clowned, and there's the confetti to the face.
Wait! You took all the money you earned licensing your name, and you bet it against the Harlem Globetrotters. So, yeah, I just don't know about the value of London as an option right now. And I mean, there's a chance that Brady Tkachuk could end up back there. I don't think it's bloody likely, but
0.1%.
Dave, I thought we weren't going to talk about the CHL anymore. Come on.
There is though the fact that he's a favorite.
I think that's that big burger timer that's going off. You had to finish the giant 6-layer burger in that time, and you get it free.
I've never been more done on a podcast than this one.
It's like the Chris Farley burger here at the Pig and Duke on 12th and 12th. You can attempt to eat it and feel like a disgusting pig.
That burger is massive, and
it's disgusting. I saw the guy eating the bun, and it was as big as his head.
We did a pod here a while back where someone pre-ordered the burger, and then all of their buddies didn't show up, so it was 2 guys and a dinner plate sized, not dinner plate, like a 14-inch burger, and the staff was not particularly happy with this group that just kind of bailed on their giant burger. So it's not giant burgers are not easy to prepare.
Yeah. Anyways, the defense.
Yes,
it sucks.
You know what? Thank you. I wouldn't go sucks. I mean, let's see what happens.
One thing about Bouchard though, if he goes down, is he's a favorite to captain the Team Canada, right? And so you can't say enough about that experience.
Well, I think if he makes the team, you let him go.
Yeah.
I mean, if
I don't think they do. Like, I don't think they would. But I mean, I agree that I would love to see that as Team Canada fan, and the junior tournament's one of my favorites. But I just can't see them letting them go.
I'm just of the opinion that to go back to my point earlier, that we have too many guys that are a bit that feast and famine style, and Bouchard, in terms of where he is in his development, he's still I would qualify him as that sort of defenseman right now. He's definitely, for like an 18 turn 19 defenseman, very poised, smart plays, but because of his natural instincts, like he wants to be involved and engaged and make something happen. We have like 5 other defensemen who want to do that to varying degrees of skill.
Yeah.
And my worry is that keeping him, not that we have a better alternative right now, I'm going to preface with that, is that if you have 5 guys like that, and then you have Adam Larson trying to carry, like juggle all those eggs in the air and not have one of them break every night, like, you're asking for disaster.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can talk about the Penguins in their last cup run where, I mean, we talked about during the break, Ian Cole playing like 20 minutes a night. That's an aberration. Like, that does not happen for a cup team 9 times out of 10. And we don't even have an Ian Cole. Like, who would be the Ian Cole equivalent?
Defensive defenseman, like, kind of boring player. Yeah.
To me, like, I just look at this lineup and, like, I would love to keep him. I would love to give him more than 9 games. I just don't see how they can do it and not, like, just leave him absolutely exposed.
Right. Here's what
I say that without an alternative. I have no idea who else is going to be in that slot because we don't have anybody else. Jerabek hasn't been great. Garrison, probably, there's no money for him.
I wouldn't sign Garrison.
And we don't have anybody else. But at the same time, I don't see having 5 guys like him of varying skill.
So, a question for you guys: have you heard any more on Sekera?
Oh, I think
he should not come back this year. Like,
I mean, what we think in reality, though. I mean, if they can't, I mean, we've actually, as a group of fans, have kind of put the Sekera thing.
The beer coming halfway through.
Have kind of put the Sekera thing aside for now, and everybody's just assuming that LTIR is going to be a year-long thing. Maybe even career-ending.
I think if you blow up your Achilles like that, I mean, that's tough.
I just think he's a write-off for this year, if not entirely, honestly.
I think it's better, even if he isn't, it's best to consider him as a write-off, and then,
So what's in Chiarelli's plan, given that he's got a little bit of cap space coming up as soon as he throws him on LTIR?
Well,
there might be someone on waivers. I honestly don't know at this point.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about in the summer that, like, defensemen are just, no one's giving up quality defensemen. They would rather give up their left arm, a third of their liver, and their firstborn child than trade you a reasonable defenseman at a sub $5 million contract.
Your options start to become like Caleb Jones,
who I'm super bullish on, but he's not ready.
Not yet, no.
No, but he sure looked good in those first couple of games, didn't he?
I was surprised he got sent down that early.
I did want to see more of him, but I don't know. He's not on this defense. I don't know that he's ready. He's another one of those guys that's just like, he plays that sort of, he's not a feast or famine guy to the same degree, but
him and Bouchard though together,
he doesn't fit a role on this team in a way that I think would make up for what he needs to learn on the fly. But I could be wrong. Maybe he'll
Here's a broader point. Are we as Oilers fans too cautious about bringing in new defensemen into the lineup? Because if you look at other rosters and other teams, there doesn't seem to be that same level of fear or hesitation when it comes to young players making the team out of camp and earning a spot in an NHL top 6D. I just maybe maybe we need to be more open to the idea that someone who is a raw rookie can grab a spot and seize a spot. You know, the median age in the league diminishes every single year.
Maybe that's why Bear's still here.
That's the other question. Ethan Bear, right? Like,
we've only touched on him a little bit.
The power play. Like, he's
so I think Bear has looked all right, but I'm disappointed in that I thought he would come into camp looking like an NHL player. Like, I thought after he got a look last year at the end of the season, I thought he would be, and especially with Bouchard coming in, I just thought we'd see more out of him. And I would say, and I'm not saying that he's been awful, because he's not been awful, but I thought that we would all sort of look and be like, whoa, what happened to this kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you know, when back in junior, he was dominant, right? Like, he was a dominant player, and he sure looked like he was going to be down that path eventually, but he didn't look to really progress much from
I think with defensemen,
last season.
To that point, defensemen always take like a weird, non-linear.
They do. You're right.
Development path. A guy like Bear probably just needs a little more time to translate that junior. And again, you're right. He was like every playoff run he went on, he was absolutely just a beast.
Yeah.
I think he just needs time to figure out how to translate that against bigger bodies, a faster game, a little bit, faster of a thought process.
Yeah.
Caleb Jones is probably the same way. I always loved that pick when they made it. And I still think that kid has a potential future. But again, that's always the problem with young defensemen, is that you never really know when they're ready until they're ready, and then how do you figure that out?
Before we move on from defensemen, I'd like to pitch my annual insane idea.
That's his annual.
I want a player in the Brent Burns, Dustin Byfuglien mold. I want a tweener, a D/winger. Evan Bouchard, put him on the wing to start the year, damn it. The silence is deafening from the other side of the table.
I can't get behind that.
No, it's the stupidest idea, but
it's even dumber than me thinking Tyler Benson was going to make the team.
There you go.
Okay, well, I didn't think he'd make the team, but I was impressed.
That, but it's still dumber than it's still not as dumb as that idea.
I just want a tweener. Why can't more defensemen be tweeners and go back and forth? I was so excited.
Struds did it.
Yeah, Johan Ovitu, and now he's back in France or wherever. I don't know. I think that makes your roster so much more versatile.
The exception does not disprove the rule. I think that's what we've
I think
discovered.
you are correct, but I can still dream.
Well, I actually play on 3 separate teams, and on one team I play center.
Right.
And I actually I will pat myself on the back. I had an all-star game the other night. I had 4 points. All goals.
Are you pitching yourself for a late PTO somewhere?
I know. And I'm honestly, I'm more of a Marchand kind of guy. I've got some good speed, probably because of the long legs. But as soon as I get towards the net, I generally can't score.
I'm the wobbly pop tester after any sort of recreational sport.
Anyway, you know what? I do it. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't, because I go from game to game.
Your brain has to work in a different way.
Yeah. And I can only do it because I'm playing adult rec. I mean, if you play, and one of the teams I play on is a pretty competitive team, and I strictly defense there. Like, I can't do otherwise,
So very quickly before we take a break, we'll take a quick look at the goaltending right now. Cam Talbot looks great. No complaints there. He looks like he's the Cam Talbot of 2 years ago. Koskinen, how do we feel about Mikko Koskinen?
I still have no idea what to think of him because
same here.
His first game sucked, but that was his first game on North American ice.
Yep, expected.
His second game sucked, but not for anything that had to do with his fault. He didn't let in any easy goals. It was, again, going back to the defense. The defense let Winnipeg run their show for I want to say 25 to 30 minutes, and just crazy open passes, blown coverage, defensemen getting blown by, and Koskinen had to make magic happen, and it was just not there for him. So I honestly don't know. I can't fault him for that. I'm still worried about the backup position, 100%. But it has nothing to do with Kostin's performance so much as that, like, I still have no idea what Kostin is at $2.5 million as a backup.
Yeah. I'm with you. He's still a bit of a question mark for me. I mean, I think Al Montoya, you know what he is.
Al Montoya, the best goaltender not in the NHL that you can trade for a second plus prospect plus future considerations.
Al waivers Montoya.
Oh man, I remember I reference it with Upshaw, but the trade proposals of Al Montoya when he was both on the Habs and in New York were always insane. It was the best goaltender not with a starting job. And guess what? He's going to lose out to like a Finnish goaltender that played in the KHL for a backup job.
Al Montoya, the greatest insurance policy in hockey.
I got no Al Montoya one-liners.
That is true. He is the greatest insurance policy.
I should have consulted my Montoya one-liners before I came out tonight.
The NHL's 70th best goalie, Al Montoya.
I will say only one thing, and this is that Koskinen. After we've seen Talbot, I think he's back. Like I think Talbot is back, and we don't.
Talbot was in mid-season form.
When we had Koskinen that first game, we didn't know Talbot was back. And I will tell you that what I think Oilers fans were looking for is somebody who would play half the season, right, and be a number one goalie in a backup role. And we don't. I think if what we've seen from Talbot so far, we need a backup goalie, right? And I think Koskinen's capable of that. They had that goalie guy on Gregor's show the other day that said one of the differences between the KHL and the NHL is in the NHL they put more pucks at the feet of the goalie.
Right.
And I assume mostly because it's a grittier game when it comes down low, right? With the smaller ice. And and Koskinen's a tall goalie, right? Like he's a big goalie. He's going to take some time. There is a difference in the game. I mean, if you've ever played Olympic ice, there's a big difference in how you play angles, everything. He'll take some time. He's got to be. I like the kid Laurent Brossoit, but he's got to be better than that.
Yeah.
And as long as I always look at it as you don't need a backup to come in and win every game they're in.
No.
But they need to make you competitive, right?
And the guys in front of you have to have confidence that you're not going to have a Brossoit level meltdown like we saw in Calgary in the past season. That you actually have a guy with the mental fortitude to keep you in a game, because that's all you're asking is just keep us in the game. Don't let in 5 goals in the third period or wherever the fuck Brossoit did.
I'm looking
that one's going to live in infamy, by the way.
Oh yeah.
We were at that game. We were all drunk.
I was there too. Yeah.
We were all very terrified.
Yeah.
We were all like chanting.
We were all gloating, and then
all of a sudden, like at the end, it worked out in the end, but like it was a bit dicey there at the last one.
And credit where credit's due, Brossoit has actually looked pretty good in Jets camp, and he actually might get that backup job backing up Hellebuck.
Hellebuck is an easy one to back up.
Yeah. But to my point, I mean, I think what we wanted as fans was a premier goaltender because we thought we needed one after last season. I think if and again, I mean, we keep saying this tonight, but it was in preseason. But if Talbot is back, then we need Koskinen.
Yeah.
And he did show himself to be a backup style of goalie in the Jets game. And if he only gets better, the guy's a giant.
Yeah.
And I'm 6'5". I'm saying this guy's a giant.
Yeah, his hip, like the top of his hip bones are like at the crossbar. I think that's disgusting.
That's wild.
Like he looks like Gritty, the Philly
he is a guy,
mascot, right?
All right. On that note, the third segment will be all about Gritty. I command this. We are going to take a quick break. We are back with more. Or you can just fast forward, hit the plus 30 seconds button or whatever. It's not a real commercial. We are going to move on to segment 3 of the joint Oilers Live, OilersYYC podcast here from the Pig and Duke in beautiful Connaught. Is this technically Connaught?
It's Connaught.
Okay, beautiful Connaught.
12th and 12th.
12th and 12th, Southwest Connaught, the jewel of the shawarma district, the shawarma and chicken district in downtown Calgary. Yeah. Not the used up cap district, no. We'll be back shortly.
Oilers Live Podcast.
So we're back at the Pig and Duke on 12th and 12th in lovely Connaught, Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
The heart of the Chicken District, actually. I should be very specific because this area, for those who are not from this part of Calgary, or
why do you hate shawarma?
I love shawarma. The shawarma's not great here. The chicken is excellent.
So why do you hate shawarma? I go back to my original question. Don't answer that, Dave. You're going to be held to the fire on that. But we are live.
Don't be putting words in my mouth.
Hang on
there.
now. I need to pump some tires here before you get put over the fire.
No, I have to talk about the Chicken District because we have, within a tight little radius, we have Nando's, KFC, Popeyes, Home and Away, best wings in the city. Sorry, Pig and Duke. Cluck and Cleaver, a great jerk chicken at the place on the corner of 14th and 17th. Forget the name. Simply Erie. What else? There's an Olive Chicken right behind us. Best chicken on the way if you want to go across the bridge. If you want fried chicken in this city, this is the best spot. And I didn't even mention our pals here at the Pig and Duke, where it's wing night.
So we are live for the third segment with OilersLive and OilersYYC, while Dave continues to dodge the question of why he hates shawarma.
I like shawarma. Jesus Christ. Although the better shawarma is across the river.
Again, I reiterate.
Shawarma King. Shawarma King.
Just like the junior question, we will bury that hatchet for now. Until next off season.
Where's your go-to shawarma place then?
I don't eat shawarma.
Oh, wow.
I eat donair.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a donair guy myself, too.
I eat that like Bloors and Grafton Halifax donair.
Yeah.
Hey,
we're all Edmonton boys, right?
That's why I can't eat that Calgary donair. It's just not the same.
It's not the same.
That's
like
true.
Mike's donair. That was
there was All-Star donair in Sherwood Park. That was amazing.
Yeah.
There's King donair. Queen donair.
Queen was awesome.
Oh, White Avenue Queen donair.
Yeah.
And night at the Black Dog pub.
Yeah.
You get absolutely lit.
Yeah.
And then you walk next door, and I say walk as in like you zombie shuffle next door.
Yeah.
You might wander into the nightclub accidentally that's right there and be like, what's going on?
Turkish donair was
Finish the night off with some funky pickle.
The Turkish.
Ooh,
do you remember Turkish
pickle.
though? Turkish had veggie poutine, which was killer, absolutely killer. But hey, if you're doing late night eats, White Ave, and I hope it's still there. Phil? Is Phil still there?
No.
I don't.
No.
He was when I was there, but I don't think he is anymore.
Fuck, now I'm forgetting what the fuck the place was called. I have so many goddamn pictures with Phil. Steel Wheels, of course. Steel Wheels.
Anyways, White Avenue, all of our favorite place to hang out.
Someone let us know if Steel Wheels is still there, because
I wasted so much of my U of A days on White Avenue.
It wasn't a waste.
I said that very like facetiously.
Nostalgically? Okay, yeah. I got it.
Anyways,
what do we want to talk about? Oh, I know what we were going to talk about.
The Donair cast.
Yeah, it could be.
The boys at the Nation up north have that covered with their Donair tour.
Oh, do they do a Donair tour?
They're doing a Donair tour, and
is that
let me tell
alongside
you,
the Beat cast, or what?
Well, the Beat cast is coming back this year, I believe. And actually, Bagged Milk today, doing one of his radio bits on the Cruise FM up there, got handed a sour beer called Beats by Sinden. It's a beet-based sour beer that I actually want to try because it sounds delicious to me. But I can understand when you had to eat a can of beets after every loss last season, that being handed that beer would be very traumatic. And I didn't think about how fun that would be to mail it to him, but I might still mail him a 4-pack just for giggles.
I like that. Just taunting.
Because I am
taunting
actually
between Oilers fans.
Everyone hears me as a charming human being. They've seen me with the beard and the nice smile, but I'm actually a terrible human being.
I'll vouch for that. Now that I've met him in person.
Yeah, it took like 5 minutes.
Awful.
Yeah,
it didn't take long. No. Once people meet me in person, it's very obvious. I will mail beet beer to somebody.
Hey,
just for laughs.
Speaking of your wild facial hair, can we talk about Gritty? I love Gritty.
Yeah, let's start.
I am pro 100%.
If by Gritty you mean magical,
Gritty is the best mascot in the NHL, bar none. UP's close.
That
Gritty's
is
the best.
terrifying. Although they're playing it so well, but man, that is
just weird. He's just weird. I love Gritty.
It's like if Animal from the Muppets fucked an orangutan.
Like it's yeah. Look, and the guys at Deadspin said this best. Pro sports is never a place where weirdness is allowed to flourish, especially the NHL. If someone is even the slightest bit weird, it gets hammered down, like that one nail that's sticking out. The NHL likes conformity. The NHL does boring. So thank God one of the original 12 franchises in this fucking league had the Stones to come out with something that is actually just fucking weird and bizarre.
Can we talk about how Hunter is no longer the absolute most terrifying mascot in the league now?
That's all Hunter had going for him.
That was his shit.
I love Hunter. I'm a Hunter fan.
That was some like Vietnamese War flashbacks, death stare that mascot has, and
Hunter's fine. Hunter just doesn't interest me. Like, what can Hunter do that's fun?
Does Gritty happen if the Golden Knights don't happen?
I don't think so. I think that
I do think the success of the salamander, for lack of a better way to put it, helped.
Yeah, I mean,
although
it's a community thing.
Is that what it was? A salamander?
Yeah, it's a salamander-ish.
It's
I don't know what it is.
a Gila something, Gila lizard or something.
But then also,
like
honestly, can we really identify what most mascots are? Like
no.
UP of the formerly of the Expos, now the Montreal Canadiens, or the Philly.
Hey, we're going to talk about Pacific Division here tonight. The worst
hang on. We're power ranking mascots right now. We do not want to talk about.
No, yeah, I know,
relevant,
but the worst mascot in the league has got to be the Hound. Like that is like
mascot in the league. Like
I think like a 2-year-old made that costume.
I think the worst mascot in the league is Eugene Melnick.
Oh, well, there you go.
All right, anyway.
And this is the OilersYYC podcast signing off on that note.
yeah, that's the end.
I will confess I have a soft spot for Harvey because I think that the Flames do their community outreach so well with Harvey. And a few years ago, a friend of mine took his 5 or 6-year-old kid to his first NHL game here in Calgary, right? So they're in the gift shop, buying a souvenir to take home. And of course, what are you going to get a 5-year-old kid? A little stuffed Harvey, right? So they
I
just don't agree with that. But no, of course.
I do not concur with that.
That's the thing, right?
Even if I had 6 kids, they would all be getting $100 and be like, "You're gonna enjoy that $100."
So
I don't care if it stares at you in the middle of the night.
Here's what I love about the way the Flames do shit, and the Oilers could take a lesson from this.
Yeah.
Is that they go to the gift shop. He's in line with this little stuffed Harvey, little 8-inch Harvey plushie, whatever, and the dad notices that the employees are all on the phone and on their radios because they all have the little in-ear radios and CBs, and he's like, what's going on? This is something weird is happening. And the kid turns around and Harvey has done a sprint across the arena to the gift shop to meet the kid in person and give him a high five and give him a hug. And brilliant fucking marketing from the Calgary Flames, because you know what? That kid is locked in for life. That kid just had the best experience of his life at that first NHL game he ever went to.
Yeah, that's all about that marketing efficiency.
Yeah, 100%. And they do so well with kids there. I wish the Oilers had a little more
I'm just going to preface this that the $28 versus $5 game is off limits. That's we've had that conversation.
You said it, not
me. We've had that conversation.
Yeah.
We're moving on.
But as far as a mascot goes, yeah, I got some time for Harvey. Certainly more than I do for Hunter or the Lynx or
Hunter
whatever.
is still very terrifying to look at, even as an adult. So that's fair.
I'm fine with a little bit of fear myself.
You don't necessarily need fear.
You guys have had I Suck at Picking on the show quite a few times, I think. And that is still by far my favorite work, where he's got Hunter ravishing on Harvey the Hound. In fact, that was his
work is exceptional.
That was his introduction. That's how I was introduced to him. By that, I saw his little trademark in the bottom right there, and that was the first one that I ever saw.
I'm gonna say on record that because I used one of his photoshops as my fantasy hockey keeper pool avatar and my team is the Visually Betters, that the next time he comes to the podcast, I will buy him a beer as compensation for using that as my avatar.
There you go,
because
Dave. If you're listening,
I know he has
free beer.
I know he has complained about the people and fairly complained. And this is not a knock on him. Fairly complained that people don't pay him for his work.
Yeah.
Or not even pay, but lift without attribution.
I will feed him beer for me abusing an image of his as an avatar on my keeper league. So you heard it here first. I suck at picking. Please come by so I can fulfill this, or don't. My wall will be happy if you don't, but that's fine.
Hey, that's a long drive from south of the city to the Big Duke for a free beer, but hopefully he hears it.
He will probably do it.
Yeah, probably. So let's move on. Pacific Division. We wanted to talk Pacific Division.
Oh shit, that's right. We were going to talk about
hockey and not just beer and mascots. Although I could do a podcast on beer and mascots, actually, and shawarma and chicken. And
I too could do a podcast on beer.
Well, hey, cut, Manny, cut. We're done. No,
we're gonna do a special episode on various hop strains and IPA percentage points. Next up on
the Pacific Division. How do we feel about what's around us right now? I mean, we saw the Anaheim Ducks lose Corey Perry for 5 months. That feels like a bit of a nail in a coffin for a team that might have been marginal.
That team was already, I think, on thin ice because of the age issue with them.
Yeah. Another team.
Gibson's always hit and miss. Gibson's an exceptional talent, but with his injury history, and Kessler's on that team.
There's not enough. Enough there. The Kings bucking the trend and going all old this year. Bringing in Kovalchuk. I mean, that's a team that, if it works, it works. But shit, they're old. You've got Arizona. That's a giant question mark for me. That team could be really good. They got a good goalie. They've got a lot going for them. Vegas. Can Lightning strike twice with Vegas? I'm skeptical, but they improved significantly. Calgary, we were talking off air about that team and some of the pros and cons of what Calgary's doing right now. Goaltending, a big issue. I'll put it out there to both of you. And Andrew, I guess I'll start with you. Give me the order in which the teams finished in the Pacific Division this year.
I'm going to say San Jose.
Yeah.
Barring injury. I'm going to assume everyone's healthy the whole year.
Yeah.
Because I think that's fair.
Yeah, of course.
Who knows what's going to happen? San Jose, because that top pairing is disgusting.
Yeah.
Their second pairing is disgusting. And they still have a solid top six. Their goaltending, they absolutely poached from the Kings a quality goaltender.
Yeah.
Just because the Kings had Quick.
Yeah.
So good on them. They're probably going to win the division. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think the Oilers finished second, with the preface that assuming everyone stays healthy, sans Sekera. Then I think with the Anaheim injury, that's tough. I think the Kings get in on the basis of the fact that Anaheim has now Corey Perry out. I don't know what to think of that team because of their age, honestly. Even the Kings, same thing. The Kings have added, but they've had that identity crisis for so long that they're a slow, big team in a world of fast teams, but they always find a way with Doughty and Quick. I just think Doughty and Quick as hard carries for a team are better than Gibson and I don't know who else. With Corey Perry out now, who else is gonna carry that team in Anaheim if Gibson can't? So I would say the Kings get third. I'll say Calgary is on the outside looking in at fourth. I have serious issues with Bill Peters as the coach. we talked about it before, how that Carolina team on paper should have been better with Bill Peters as the head coach, but never was. It never realized its potential, and I think that's on him. And I hate to ascribe a singular cause to a team's downfall, but like with Eakins and Edmonton, what feels like a millennia ago.
Yep.
And Bill Peters in Carolina, like as of last year, and his tenure. That's a coaching problem. And Calgary inheriting a coach that has zero proven capability at the NHL level, and then inheriting players from that environment, even though they're good players, don't get me wrong. Mike Smith is a goaltender again. Like, I think last year was an exception. They don't really have a game breaker forward like almost everybody else in the Pacific has. Even Arizona has a game breaker forward.
Johnny Gaudreau's a game breaker forward.
I just think he just gets canceled out so hard right now. But I get what your point. He could elevate himself. I just think that right now, after the way he played last year, he's just going to get canceled out.
Yeah.
In so many circumstances, and they don't have another guy to step up. I picked Tyler Benson to make the team, so I could be completely wrong.
Is this thing recording? Because I do like Monahan. I hope you stopped recording when I said that. But
No. This is all on record.
I think Monahan.
I do like Monahan.
Sean Monahan's the best player on the Flames, and he's, I think, underrated as a player. He had so many surgeries last year. He was so broken at the end of last year. I think a healthy Sean Monahan is something that should inspire some fear in the rest of the division and the rest of the league.
So did you get everybody there?
I saw Vegas. I would say that the bottom three are pretty interchangeable. You have Anaheim, Calgary, and Vegas. I think Vancouver. Vegas is on the outside looking in.
You're forgetting Vancouver.
I don't give a shit about Vancouver.
Good point.
My Vancouver friends will tell me they also don't give a shit about Vancouver because they know they're rebuilding. Yeah. It's the postseason era. They don't care. So I think Arizona finishes above Vancouver for sure. I think Calgary and Vegas are probably fighting for like the last wildcard spot, but miss out because the Central Division is disgusting. And then Vancouver's just like eating paste in the corner with like just like doing their own thing.
So I'm interested in one part of your list. Why are you so low on Vegas?
I love them adding Pacioretty, and that's why I could absolutely get burnt with this. I love them adding Pacioretty and Stastny, but they're missing the best defenseman for the first 20 games.
Yeah.
And I think what we learned with an expansion team, like we learned with a lot of teams that are in a similar position in terms of like people are have an underappreciation for who they are as a team. They don't have a chip on their shoulder anymore because they proved themselves. Mm-hmm. They went on a long run. Just like any team that surprises in like a long season plus a long playoff run, there's no surprises with what Vegas is anymore. And teams are going to play them hard like they would play it.
There were no surprises 12 games into the year. Like, people knew that Vegas was a thing really early on in the season. I don't know if I buy that.
I don't know. I think everyone was just kind of like waiting for them to collapse with the goaltender thing that they had.
I was waiting for the collapse.
And everyone was. And I think that gets. And I hate to like harp on intangibles because I think intangibles are for the most part bullshit. But I think in that case, I think people constantly like just underestimated them as a team because of like the underlying chip on the shoulder they all had collectively. And that goes a long way, but it only goes so far.
Yeah.
And we saw that with them like losing out in the end. And I think going into this year, they're going to have like these really high expectations, just like the Oilers had last year.
Yeah.
And the minute they have like, and again, they already have some issues with like their best defenseman being out for the first bit of the season. Like we have with Sekera, not comparing like one for one per se, but I look at that situation they have, and I would not be surprised if they have a dip before they come back to where they should be, right? So like just like we were thinking with the Oilers, like they had they overperformed 2 years ago, underperformed last year. I know everyone I think has a really good, a much better idea where the Oilers are going to be. Relatively speaking, I think Vegas is going through that equilibrium.
I'll take my thoughts on Vegas away from the intangible stuff because that's a great point.
But Pacioretty and Stastny could absolutely just burn me on that because the Pacioretty thing, super smart.
It's not even the players. It's Vegas figured out something last year in terms of style of play and tempo. They were the fastest, most go team in the NHL, and that was their success. They played at such a high tempo all year that, I mean, the Jets should have beat them. The Jets should have figured out, instead of trying to run and gun with the Knights, which is what they tried to do and lost, what they should have done was done what Washington did and just trap and confuse them. You know, I think that not every team is equipped to do that against the Golden Knights. I think that if they keep playing with that same pace and tempo, and they know that it works as a team and as a coaching staff, they're in good shape. That's a tough out, right? And they've got the best home ice advantage in the league, not just because of, players, at the slots until 4 a.m., but, like, that's a tough rink to play in. I have a hard time betting against Vegas.
Out of all the teams that I ranked out of the playoffs, I think they're the one team that could sneak in. Like, LA just has this weird thing about being resilient, which is why I have a hard time betting against them with Doughty and Quick as their anchors. That doesn't mean that I don't think I could foresee Vegas getting back into the playoffs 100%. Right. I just look at the known quantities, and as much as I love Pacioretty, I think they absolutely just destroyed Montreal in that trade despite giving up a very good prospect, and the Stastny signing was like very smart. I'm hesitant to bet against LA, who seems to, for whatever reason, just hang around.
Right.
And if I think Edmonton and I think San Jose are going to be the two in, and with the Central Division being so strong, I got a hard time giving a fourth spot to the Pacific.
Right.
Okay, so let's run down your list first, just quickly. Let's just recoup your list. So you said
San Jose, Edmonton, LA. So those would be the playoff teams for sure.
Yeah.
And then I would say Vegas, and then I think Calgary. It's honestly a toss-up, like Calgary, Arizona, and Vancouver. Okay. Although I think Vancouver's definitely the pace eaters. Like, they're going to be wearing the helmet, like bouncing off the walls, doing whatever they want to do. It's a post-Sedin era. Like, I have zero expectation for that team.
Even Besser looked like he was in a daze, in the last game.
I just think they're exactly where they should be, and that's exactly where you're going to be when you lose two guys like the Sedins.
All right, let's throw it over to Michael. Your call.
So my Pacific Division. So I've got surprise, San Jose number 1. I heard they got some defense this year, and so I suspect
that defense looks all right.
They look all right. I'm with you. I think, and I'm really hesitant because there's a lot of homer in me, but I got Edmonton in number 2, and this is preseason optimism right now. But they look good, and all of the things we were worried about last year, and I really, I've thought long and hard about this. Our power play and our penalty kill were so shit last year that if we, improve them even just a little bit, we raise our place in the standings.
We discussed that in the preseason. Is that, like, even if we had an average power play and penalty kill, that's equal to like at least another like 20 points in our season.
Exactly.
Because like that's what killed us more often than not. It wasn't the 5-on-5.
And you got Yanni and Gulletson. And then the one thing that did scare me preseason was when it was Koskinen let in the first shot.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't even in the building at that game on last Monday there. My phone buzzes and it goes, oh shit, really? Like we're still getting patted down by security.
That's never the Oilers when that early like game alert buzz. We've been trained now that we know that first like sub 2 minute like buzz alert, we know it's on Edmonton
Just
goal.
save the first shot. All right. Okay, so we got San Jose, Edmonton. And then, in third, although I agree with you on Vegas, but I just can't see them falling that far out. But I do think they're going to fall back. So I would have Vegas at third. But the Schmidt thing, you know what? When I was thinking about this, because I was thinking about this earlier today, is where everybody would be. And the Schmidt thing actually makes me think twice about that, because that is such a big loss on the D. And then you think about, I go back to Elliot Friedman did his 31 Thoughts recently. I don't know if you listened, but he talks about the it that a team has.
Yeah.
And, that it, or whatever he says, he also talked in that about James Neal and how he was, one of those forces of, like, bringing a team sort of over the hump. He's gone.
James Neal's, like, super forgotten in Calgary.
He's what?
He's super forgotten as, like, a Calgary signing.
Yeah.
But I think for all the right reasons. Like, I really haven't heard anything about him being impactful. And maybe I'm wrong because I haven't watched a lot of games, but, like...
The China games you can write off because
I think Calgary's got other problems, though. I don't think that James Neal solves their problems.
I don't feel like Vegas is missing anything by missing James Neal.
I think Vegas is less by the subtraction, and Calgary is not made significantly better by the addition.
I think that's also a fair comment.
Yeah, like I actually think that's probably the best thing for the Oilers, right? So there's that. There's Perron, right? Like, these were guys that these were part of the toss-aways that everybody was talking about, right? Like that everybody said these are guys that need to prove themselves and made them a team that. So I think again, just to your point, right? Like they overperform one year, they'll at the very least they will stabilize this year to where they should be. I've got them as a 3, maybe a 4 team.
I mean,
and then Calgary is same thing.
I only picked LA because I have a hard time betting against the two studs in LA.
And I get that. I just don't think they've done enough. I think that just based on their Twitter, that every time Kovalchuk scores, they have to tweet about it like it's a big deal, means that that's what they're hoping for this year.
That actually might be written into Kovalchuk's contract, though. Let's not forget that Kovalchuk coming from the KHL probably made some weird contractual demands.
What I always try to think about is if the Oilers signed him, how excited would I be, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, because when a player like that signs with another team, you immediately think about the detractors on why would never have signed him. But when they sign with our team, I always think about everybody else is stupid. We made the right choice. Now, if Kovalchuk signed with the Oilers, would I be excited? I'm not 100% sure I would.
No, I didn't really. When those rumors started to come bubbling up that he wanted back in North America, I'm kind of take it or leave it with Kovalchuk now.
You weren't thinking I want him to be an Oiler.
If you had told me that Chiarelli had made like a phone call, I'd be like, yeah, that's fair. You want to make a phone call on a guy that is still an NHL quality, like potential all-star player. I didn't take it very seriously, the idea that Kovalchuk would A, come here, and even if he would, B, that we could find the cap space to make him work, and also ice a 23 man roster every night.
So bottom end of that division.
Bottom
who's
end.
the also
So I've got San Jose, Edmonton, and Vegas and Calgary kind of in that middle of the pack. I've got LA next, and then Anaheim, followed by Phoenix and Vancouver. To be fair, after San Jose, it's really a bit of a shit show in our division, including the Oilers.
It's super arbitrary, honestly. Yeah. I think we've kind of like alluded to it, but we should almost separate it by like who we think's going to make the playoffs and who's we think is like not going to make the playoffs. Because I pick Edmonton at 2 because I'm an Edmonton fan, but if they were third behind, say, Vegas, I wouldn't be shocked.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is really up in the air.
Let's wrap. I'm going to give you mine, bottom to top. And you're right. You can't tell what's going to happen in the other division and crossovers and things like that, so it's tough. But this just sort of gives us a nice little framework to work with in terms of how we feel that things are going to shake up. So 8th place, Vancouver. Vancouver's
Yeah, no,
be bad.
that's a no shit Sherlock.
So we all
Lock in.
agree on 1st and 8th.
Yeah.
That's a lock.
7th place, Anaheim. 6th,
I could see that. Yeah.
6th place, Calgary. I would be super scared about Calgary's goaltending right now.
Yeah.
We talked about all last year with Mike Smith, and like he overperformed, but that groin is like always on the verge of just bursting like a bubble.
Yeah. 5th place, LA. 4th place, Arizona. 3rd place, Vegas. 2nd place, San Jose. And I'm going to put on my Homer hat. I would not bet against Connor McDavid this year. 4th year in the league. Players always do well in their 4th year. Things seem to be breaking in the right direction. People are saying
first year Waddell winners.
You know what?
First place overall in the division.
You know, the playoffs are a different story, right? Like if you have an elite defenseman or 2 elite defensemen, those are guys that can suck up wins so easily in the playoffs. But I don't know. I find it really hard to bet against the best player in the NHL.
I think he gets at least 110 points. I think he broaches 120 if the Ratty thing works out. I realize that's stupid to say, like on some level, but also like he's needed an outlet.
I think he's 10 to 20 points clear of the next closest player.
Oh yeah. And after last year, he was like, what was it, 7 points clear of the next closest after coming from behind 20 games out from the end of the season.
Like, and I think the flow has added some speed. Like
it's aerodynamic.
Yeah.
I like
Everyone knows having a partial mullet is ergonomically efficient in hockey.
Hockey players knew that a long time ago. It's a well-known fact.
So I think we generally agree on the Pacific Division. I think the Coyotes are probably my one team that I place them out of the playoffs, but I have no idea what to expect of that team.
The sleeper team. Yeah.
They're still paying Chris Pronger, part of the NHL executive.
He honestly still being
the
paid.
best. Oh, they got Hossa. They had Datsuk for a while.
Yeah,
I
think they're still paying Datsuk.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, are they really still paying?
Pretty sure.
Pronger?
So I'm pretty sure they're still paying. The point is, that team is.
But I gotta check because you might be right.
That team is the dumping ground for like these weird contracts.
Yeah.
But Chaika is drafting really well and picking up some
good
very
trades too.
So just I'm going to do a little shout out here. I'm checking Puckpedia, and I've had Puckpedia on the
Mike's
podcast.
checking Puckpedia. We're going to talk about how so I have a Habs friend that's absolutely just been on suicide watch all off season. Because like the Patches trade for him was like awful. The Galchenyuk trade for him was just a dumpster fire. And even last year when they were trading off like their top prospects for nothing to him. I like what a team like Arizona has done in terms of poaching from a clearly desperate and flailing Montreal Canadiens team.
Well, you know what? They've got a goalie. They locked up OEL, which is huge.
And OEL is like a rock solid defenseman.
You know, there are lots of good pieces in Arizona, and I think a lot of people sleep on that team just because of where they are.
They won that trade, that Galchenyuk Domi trade. They won that 100%.
100%.
Domi might do really well in Montreal. But Galchenyuk has scored like more goals in a season than Domi has in his entire career.
So Arizona is still paying Mike Smith.
Right.
They're no longer paying Chris Pronger.
So the rake is no longer raking it in out of Arizona.
That poor man. And for those of you that think the Koskinen contract was a bad deal, you could be the Coyotes and be paying Mike Ribeiro $2 million a year for the next 2 seasons.
The Ribeiro thing is. Oof.
Yeah.
Did they pick up that contract to eat it? Yeah, that's right. So, you know what? I mean, if you can wrangle something clever where you get something out of it for eating salary, you know what?
They have got a ton of value contracts, though. And
that's the thing. That's the thing. They're like Vegas Light in terms of the value, like their value per point.
Yeah,
they get the most out of their players. Like they're
that's a team that could be sneaky good.
I'm not saying that they're going to make the playoffs, but they're a team that if you sleep on, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And be surprised when you lose in overtime to that team.
We're going to wrap things up because the beers are getting empty and we can't get too loaded here. And we've been doing this for a couple hours.
Speak for yourself. I want a beer.
Yeah, we'll be peeling you off the floor here. So one last question I wanted to ask you guys. What are you most excited about for this Oilers season? What's the one thing that has you more excited than anything in past seasons? What's the one thing you're looking at to drive you as a fan through this upcoming season?
I'll take that first. Okay, it's kind of a two-parter. Number one, I don't know if I told you guys, I'm a season ticket holder this year, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I'll be heading out there to watch a number of games. And I didn't think it was possible, but I am even more excited about McDavid than I've ever been, and that whole line. So if the Ratty thing turns out, which I would bet money on it, and I might have. I'm not confirming that. But if it does turn out, then I'm super excited about that.
I'm excited for McDavid to hit 120 points because I honestly think that's possible with the way that top line is gelling, preseason or not. Like, it's... Dude just has targets, like real legitimate targets to think on his level, do what he wants to do. Nugent Hopkins and Ratty just riding shotgun for him is
work.
And we've kind of alluded to it all night, like the Connor Sheary / Chris Kunitz / Jake Gensel for this team, and that's what we've been looking for.
Yeah.
And that's all we've really needed is guys that are going to play that role for McDavid and let the other lines do their own thing. But we saw what McDavid did like in those last 25-30 games last year, almost on his own, with Ratty, of course. I'm going to defer to Dave on that point. With Ratty also lighting it up. So you have 82 games of that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're getting 120 points out of McDavid. You're going to probably get a career high out of Nugent Hopkins, even being like the babysitter, like keeping the fires warm at home while the other two just go play. And then Ratty entering the zone like a couple seconds later than everybody else and just like sliding on his knees, stick on the ice and being like, put me in, coach, let's go, and like firing a top corner like every other night.
So what I'm excited about, and it's very simple, I'm just excited to watch meaningful Oilers hockey in 2019 because things went so south so quickly last year that it felt like by mid-November it was worth throwing in the towel.
So it felt like 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012,
yeah.
2013.
Well, we had the season prior to
we had a couple seasons where there was it got
meaningful
close,
hockey is something we only get in little like spurts. So yes, I'm also looking forward to that.
So you know what, I'm pumped because things could go right, things could go wrong. It's hockey. It's a super random sport, and the fact that 16 of 31 teams make it means that, you know what, there's still a chance the Oilers could miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because bounces and bad luck and injuries, who the fuck knows, right? But the Oilers have a shot that's, I think, as good as any other team in the league, and it's going to be fun to watch it play out. So I'm an optimist, but I think it should be a fun season.
All right. I think, we're all excited for the next season. This is the end of our first ever joint podcast between Oilers Live and OilersYYC. I want to just do a quick plug. December 9th, we're doing the Oilers Live Cup at the Downtown Community Arena. All the proceeds are going to the Chinook Autism Society. What a wonderful cause. And one of our own Oilers Twitter fans, at Radistic, is an autism parent and very inspiring to all of us. This has been great. It's great to meet other Oilers fans, and we're looking forward to an exciting season. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And subscribe to both podcasts, OilersYYC and Oilers Live.
Oilers Live.